You're prompting wrong and it's killing your AI agents. In this video, we're going to go over a very simple guide that I put together from all of the latest techniques from companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, and more on how you should prompt your AI agents. I have the link in the description below. This will be one of the most important videos you can watch on prompt engineering, so let's dive right into it. All right, guys, for this video, we're going to jump into my school community. It's called Digital Automation Diagram. We're going to come into the classroom, into the vault, and in the vault, I have tons of information in here, AI assistant prompts that will help you build whatever you want, MCP resources, custom GPTs. What we're going to look at is this guide I put together, the foolproof guide to prompt engineering for AI agents. Let's just pop this open. All of my sources come from companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, etc., and all of the documents they put out to talk about these specific techniques. Just as an example, this is one of the guides that was being referenced here. This is the one from OpenAI, prompting guide, agentic workflows. So this is coming directly from OpenAI, in this case, this specific document. This is just one of my sources to create this simple document we're going to go over in this video. So what is prompt engineering? Specifically for agents, it is to communicate to the agent exactly what is desired. Mastering prompt engineering can vastly improve the reliability, accuracy, and quality of responses from your agents. So we're going to run through these practices here. These are the very simplified technical methods for prompting. Step one, of course, we need to define the objective clearly. We need task definition, and we need to give the AI agent context. So for example, your task is to analyze consumer preferences and identify new trends in the food beverage industry. So here is your task, and here is the context on why we need to analyze consumer preferences. We are trying to identify new trends in the food and beverage industry. Now, I would even take this a step further if you have a specific goal. In this case, let's just build this one out together. So I'm going to jump into ChatGPT. Let's just grab what we have here already, copy that back into ChatGPT and say something like, I need to create a prompt, paste that in to analyze consumer preferences and identify new trends in the food and beverage industry. Send that off. Now, right away, ChatGPT is going to write in the next part and give it a role. So you are a market research analyst with expertise in food and beverage industry. If we jump back over to the guide, we can see that's step number 2, assign a specific role. This is role-based prompting. So right here, you are an expert market researcher specializing in consumer goods and emerging culinary trends is the example here. If you've done any agentic prompting already, you've seen this happening. This is pretty typical and started the way you would prompt an AI assistant. You want to say, you are blank. You are this. You are an expert in a particular field, or act as a master of a particular subject, right? So we want to assign a role that will give the agent context on who it is and what its own background is and what its knowledge base should be. How should it approach a particular problem? I should approach this particular problem as an expert market researcher. So it's going to shape the behavior of the AI agent by giving it a specific role. Great. So step 3, this talks about modular prompting. We want to structure a prompt for clarity, right? So modular prompting just means first do this, next do that, then do that, right? We can see it in the example here. First, list the top selling product categories, then highlight emerging dietary trends, and finally, recommend potential product development opportunities. So let's jump back over to what we got in the prompt here. We've got that modular prompting already set up. Start by summarizing the key shifts in consumer behavior over the past 12 to 24 months. Number 2, evaluate data sources such as social media trends, food delivery apps. Number 3, identify 3 emerging trends. And here are some examples. Next module here is suggest 2 to 3 new product or service opportunities that businesses could develop. And number 5, conclude with a brief strategic recommendation. So 5 modules added to this prompt, right? 5 steps added to this prompt on what we need to accomplish and get back in a response. So that is the modular prompting. Again, this was all created by ChatGPT with a simple prompt. This is my technique on building out really complex prompts, I don't actually write them. I have ChatGPT write them for me, and then I ask questions and tune them up as I go. So we'll get into that more following the guide over here. All right. Step 4, this is the full-on step-by-step reasoning or chain of thought prompting. So we need to encourage the detailed, logical, and step-by-step responses, right? So in this example, we can say, let's analyze this step-by-step, starting with identifying leading product categories, then assessing current consumer dietary preferences, and finally suggesting innovative product ideas. So very similar to the modular prompting, but the chain of thought structure is more step by step. I need you to do this step by step, starting with this and then moving on to this. So just having this line in here, step by step, this phrase right here saying, let's do this step by step, or write me something step by step, or work through this step by step. That is a huge keyword for reasoning through an action and creating chain of thought prompting. Okay, step 5, we can provide examples. This is what is called few shot prompting. We want to give an example output, right? We want to actually say, this is what I'm looking for to the agent. We want to give that agent what we're expecting to come back so that agent can actually design its responses in the way that we want it to. So in this example, we can prompt the agent with this text. Here is an example of the analysis structure I expect. Number 1, top product category. Number 2, emerging trend. And number 3, product opportunity. So when we provide a skeleton of the response or the framework of the response, we're telling the agent that this is the output structure that we're looking for by providing examples. Let's take a look at the way that I do that when I am creating my prompts. Let's jump back over here. This is what we've got going on so far. I'll just say something like, can you provide a sample output response that would be generated using this prompt? Okay, so here's a sample output. We can tune up and start to see how our responses might come back. And if we're not getting the data that we want to come back in the way that we want it, we can tune up and say something like, just to throw something in here, really simply, let's just say remove this line. I'll copy that, say remove this line from any output. Paste that in there and send that off. So now it's going to come back and say that line will be excluded from outputs. We can tailor up how those responses are coming back. Great. Now I'm going to weave this expected output into our prompt. You might not necessarily want to do something like this, but just to show you how I would do something like this is say, weave this example output into the prompt and rewrite the prompt. Send that off. Great. So now we're getting that original role back. And we're getting that modular prompting with a example structure on how we want it to come back. So module number 1, summarize key shifts in consumer behavior. This is an example of how I want that to come back. Module 2, reference data sources used. Here is the example of how I want that to come back, and so on. We have module 3 with the example format, module 4 with the example format, module 5, and the example. Now, I love that we're doing this already right here. This is something that we're going to talk about later on in the guide, but we have these constraints. So we're already getting that into our full prompt being created by ChatGPT. So ground claims in real world data, product examples, avoid speculative or generic statements, stuff like that is already being built into our prompt. We'll take a look at that in a second. So let's jump back over to the document. Okay, step number 6, we want to encourage reflection and self-improvement. The 2 most powerful lines. This is my biggest pro tip, the most profitable lines you can give any AI prompt is saying something like, is this the best way we can do this? Is there anything we can add? If you build that line into your prompts, then the agent will be able to reflect, is this the best way to find this information? Is this the best way to use these tools? Is there anything else we can add, or is there anything else we can do? So in this example, we can say, review your analysis for any overlooked factors or inaccuracies, then provide a revised summary, right? So within the prompt, or even better, a series of prompts, we can talk about more advanced automation structures, how you would actually build out agents in series or agents in a chain or agents that perform specific tasks. We'll get into that a little bit further down. But for example, in this case, we can have two prompts that run one after the other, one running this action and then immediately feeds into another AI assistant or another AI model. And that one is prompt to review your analysis, anything overlooked, and then rewrite what you just made, right? So we can build that into a single command for the output that we're looking for. Okay, so let's jump over to ChatGPT, and I can add this by saying something like, I want you to add in a couple lines in the prompt to say something like, review your findings and analyze if this is the best way to present the data, then revise your response. Something like that. Let's add a line here saying, weave this appropriately into the prompt. Great, so we're still getting our role and our task context here. So if I scroll all the way down, we now have this extra part in here, review, final review step. After completing your report, review your findings and ask, is this the clearest, most effective way to present these insights? Revise your response if necessary to improve structure, clarity, or depth, right? So that is an excellent line there. Let's jump back over to the guide. Now, this is where it gets a little more complex for how you want to implement these techniques. Step 7, we can implement multi-agent collaboration. Now, this is sending things in a series, sending things in tandem. There are so many techniques, and we talk about best practices and techniques in the school community all the time. By the way, if you want to join my school community, I have the link in the description below. Definitely come join us in the live Q&A calls we have every Tuesday. We talk about this stuff and how to implement the best techniques into your workflows. In this case, we can have 3 different AI agents or AI assistants, and we can have agent 1 focusing entirely on identifying consumer trends. Then we can have agent or AI assistant number 2 focusing solely on evaluating market opportunities, and agent 3 proposing strategic product development, stuff like that. So each agent is given a single task that it is the master of, and you can get all of those answers, all of those responses, all of that data out of each of those and combine it later on down the chain of your automations. Now, we can enhance reliability with self-consistency. We can actually build into the agent prompt the ability to explore multiple paths of reasoning or decision making. So this is a very simple one. Generate 3 different approaches to evaluating consumer trend data and highlight the most consistent product opportunities. Right? So this is how we want to actually tailor that behavior to explore multiple paths. We don't want to let those paths be open-ended. We need all of those paths of reasoning to come to the same specific goal. So when I prompt with this self-consistency, I'll usually say something like, come up with 20 examples, look over those 20 examples and identify which ones are the best before returning your response. If you're just saying something like, come up with 20 different examples, it's going to do that, and you're going to have 20 different ideas that have not been iterated upon. Always coming through with these multiple routes of reasoning to a singular point. Always saying something like, reason through all of this stuff, but after you're done reasoning, find the best option. All in the same prompt. We need to build this all into a single prompting method or a single agent run if possible. All right, so step 9, we're talking about advanced techniques now. RAG is something, if you've been diving into AI agents, retrieval augmented generation is definitely a trendy subject right now. We're prompting agents to grab stuff from a database, text and information or data from a source and relate it back. So retrieval augmented generation, I want to add another one here as well that is being talked about in tandem. A hybrid dynamic method of retrieval is using a CAG system, CAG, that is hashed augmented generation, basically storing things into a temporary cache, retrieving them, and then deleting the cache when you're done with it. We'll probably be seeing a lot more CAG techniques as LLMs and AI models are able to handle more and more tokens, we're going to see larger and larger bits of data being processed at any given time. A 100-page document being loaded in and stored temporarily, being referenced as many times as is needed, and then that document is deleted out of the cache. So something to look forward to there. We also have TOT, tree of thought, kind of like we were talking about up above. We want to prompt the agent to simultaneously explore multiple logical pathways. That is something to explore decision-making potential for these agents. If you've been using ChatGPT, you've been using LLMs, generally when you say, help me make this decision, which one is best, you have to have a big conversation before it's finally honed in on what you're looking for as the thing that is the best. For example, just looking up something like, what are the best AI agent prompting techniques? You're going to get a response back saying the best AI agent technique is whatever is right for the situation. Very generic answers come back like that all the time. On a surface level, you're not giving any context to a tree of thought, and having ChatGPT explore those logical pathways fully and come back with a more refined answer for you, right? It's just surface level, but we can explore much more advanced responses when we can implement a tree of thought. One of my favorites, and something I've been doing much more heavily in the recent weeks, is meta prompting. I am loving the results I'm getting with meta prompting. So basically you're having your agent write prompts that can then be used to improve its own response. So I would prompt my agent, you are a prompt writing agent. Your goal is to write prompts that perform a specific task. Then that prompt, that new output, gets sent to another agent, and that agent's job is to take this prompt and perform the task. So meta prompting is asking your AI to generate prompts for itself that it can then use to take in information and tailor that information and response in a much more detailed and refined way. So first, write me a prompt to do the task, then do the task, right? Much more in depth. This one right here, integrating code, becomes a lot more muddy, a lot more complex. If you are, of course, a coder or some kind of engineer, this is one of the more useful techniques that you're probably already doing heavily, right? And so that is just having your AI output snippets of code you can then copy into whatever coding platforms you're using, outputting a coding language or script, and then copy and pasting those scripts straight into your tools, right? So step 10, we're talking about iterative prompt refinement. So this is something I also do very heavily, and it's part of the meta prompting approach. So based on your last output, let's change what we're actually doing in these specific ways. And it's not necessarily even about changing the prompt, it's just about refining the response you want to get. So having AI agents or AI assistants in series, in this case for iterative prompt refinement, we can have multiple agents, but they're going to be in series, in a line, one taking the output of the next and refining it. That one gives a response, the next one takes that response, refines it even more, and so on. You can have so many down the chain refining a single response and performing its specific jobs on those responses. Now, one reason you might need to do that, I've done that in several cases. I had a system that could output ebooks, custom ebooks, and I had an AI assistant write an outline. Then the next AI assistant would take that outline and write a title. Then the next assistant would take that outline and title and write a summary. And then it would write the first draft, and then it would refine the draft, and so on until you have a final product. And so you're getting really well thought out content for each segment where that AI assistant has a specific task, right? So iterating and refining the output from each AI assistant or AI agent in series. So some of these are pretty straightforward for common pitfalls. Ambiguity, we want to clearly define objectives. We want to avoid vague or misleading responses. Don't overload your prompts. We want to keep them concise. This one can be misleading. We don't always necessarily need examples, but where you want a structured output, you want a structured response, you should give an example of how you want that structure to look like. For example, number 1, number 2, number 3, right? We want to put information in each of those sections specifically. So giving examples to structure your responses. Prompt testing, generally I skip all of the lower end always testing stuff and just go right for the big builds, blast everything out and see what comes out, and then go through a refinement process via the methods up here. I don't necessarily do pilot testing or comparative testing. Usually it's more of iterative feedback. This is what we got. What can we add to this? Okay, so again, the two most important lines you can give an AI, the two most profitable lines that make your AI agents work for you, is building into the prompt, or in this iterative feedback method, saying, is this the best way that we can do this? Is this the highest level way we can do this? And is there anything else we can add? And usually your AI will come back with, hey, you have a solid start, but let's add this and this. And then you just say, cool, add all that. And then it comes back again and you say, is this the best we can do? What else can we add? And your AI says, yeah, this is great, but now we can talk about this and this. Cool, add it, right? So you can just keep going on. And that is my tried and true method of coming up with literally anything. So let's jump back over to the prompt and do exactly that. We're going to add those two magic lines. Is this the best way to write this prompt? Is there anything we can add? Send that off right away. Just like I mentioned, yes, this prompt is strong and well structured, especially for guiding detailed market trend analysis. But to reason thoroughly, let's evaluate and optimize. Great. So here is what works well. Here is what can be improved or added. So lots of great suggestions. Encourage use of visuals or tables. Incorporate a risk challenge angle. That's pretty cool. So I'll just say, go ahead and add everything appropriately. Boom. Now we've already got some cool stuff coming in here. Output guidelines, length setting here, labels being included, some of the non-negotiables like ground insights in real world examples, avoid references to social media virality. We've got the modular prompts in here with their output examples all the way down to number 5. And we've got a new one here. Number 6, anticipate risk or misread. Example, while gut health is trending, many products in this space lack clinical validation, with which risks eroding consumer trust. So very good to add a section like that. In our last section here, review before delivering your final report, review your findings and ask, is this the clearest, most strategic way to present these insights? Great, so we've got a beautiful, lengthy prompt here, but to give it a true purpose for an AI agent, we need to craft one more piece, or I should say 2 more pieces into this. This prompt is for an n8n AI agent. That right there will change the structure of this entire prompt, and ChatGPT will write this in a way that is more suited to an n8n AI agent structure to be copied and pasted into the system instructions in an AI agent. Then we say this will take in a market and location to produce highly customized results to a specific market and demographic. Since I'm just making this up, I have no idea what that even means, but we have a specific audience in mind. Great, so we got those 2 things here. Here's the market and here is the location that can be dropped in there and mapped inside of n8n specifically. We've got the location here, we've got the market here, location, market. That seems a bit cumbersome to map everything in there just like that. So let's add one more direction. We'll add this to say, for the location and market, I want to map it one time. The prompt should say something like, read the market and location above ... for each area that it is needed. So I'm just crafting this prompt to be more user-friendly. There we go. Here are those inputs, the market and the location. Now that can easily be mapped in n8n. Just to skim down and make sure everything is still structured. That looks good. Now as a final touch, I'm gonna go to the last beautiful looking prompt. That was before we gave it the n8n instructions. Okay, I'm gonna copy this prompt, come back down and say, this was the prompt we create. Okay, this was the prompt we created. Compare this with your most recent output and make sure we have the best and highest level prompt we can write. So adding that last bit in there, copying the best output and comparing it to the final output and just making sure everything is looking good is the final touch, is the icing on the cake. And we already have some very simple comparisons here. We've got some structure changes, some options on what we can remove and what we can keep, and the final recommendation. This is it, guys. This is what we've been striving for. So let's say, write that final prompt. And there we go with little emojis and everything. Cool. We've got our modules in there down to number 6 for risk. Anticipate risk or misreads. We have the final step to review. Everything looks excellent. Now we can copy this entire prompt. Let's come into n8n and drop it into our AI agent. I'll just add an AI agent in here real quick. Add the option for the system message, delete out the 5-word prompt, and paste in our massive new work of art. I'm gonna expand out the prompt section so we can see it. So here it is, final prompt, written out beautifully specifically for n8n, where we can map in the different sections. So we can grab the expression from a previous node and drag and drop that in right here for the market information, and we drag and drop in the location from a previous node. Presumably that is all coming down the chain. Now, just out of curiosity, I'm going to run this. I've no idea what will come back. I don't know anything about food and beverage industry at all. Let's build something in here. I'll just add an edit fields node. Inside the edit fields node, I'll add a market. This will be fitness coaches. And for a location, let's add in a location. Just making this up and adding it in here. So we'll just use Greater Phoenix area. To trigger this, we're gonna need to add some more things to the agent here. We'll add a manual trigger. We can add in the chat model. I'm just gonna use ChatGPT. 4.0 mini is fine. Don't need a memory. Now, this is what's great about using agents. Just a quick distinction. I have this information in another video, and you can definitely talk about this stuff more inside the school community, but what is the difference between an AI assistant and an AI agent? For the most part, on a base level, an agent can use tools and make decisions somewhat autonomously on how those tools are used. So we can add tools in here if you want to look up anything from other databases. For example, you have a database of locations and markets. You want to pull specifically from some of that data, or run things through your MCP server. We don't need to do any of that. We just need a response to come back. Coming into the agent, I'm going to drop this down. The source for the prompt, I'll click on define below, and we can use the information coming from the edit fields nodes. Basically, the user prompt is going to say, read the market and location info. Now we need to actually map that stuff into the system message prompt. If I expand this back out, we can see it's waiting for a market and location. Now, alternatively, we can pop this out of the system message and apply it to the input prompt from the user. So I'm actually going to take this out of our main prompt, delete it, finish off this user prompt saying something like this. I'm gonna switch it to an expression and click the little expand button right here to expand that out so we can see it, and then just paste in that right here. I'll actually just delete that line there, and we're getting the market we can map in and the location we can map in. So this is essentially data that's coming from the user each time. That is the user message coming in, and then the system message will perform as normal as we built it out in ChatGPT. So let's go ahead and map that in here. I'll just click the little play button above the edit fields node just to test out the workflow to that step. Double click back into the agent, and we can grab our market, delete this out, grab the market, map it in right there, and the location, map it in right there. Now, I have no idea what's going to come out of here. You saw me build this prompt. I know nothing about this industry, so we'll see what can come out. Maybe I can be a professional food and beverage industry analyzer with this workflow right here. So I'm going to hit test step and see what we get. And there we go, guys. We have our full report. I'm just going to copy this entire thing, jump back into a new ChatGPT window, paste that in there, and say, write this as rich formatted text, just to quickly beautify our new report. There we go. Trend report, food and beverage insights for the fitness coaches in the greater Phoenix area, key shifts in consumer behavior. So we're getting our structure back the way that we wanted. Here's our first module coming back exactly the way we structured it. Sustainability, second module. We've got some data sources here, gym studio analytics, sales reports, emerging trends, nutritional convenience, active millennials and Gen Z. Yeah, examples are the RX bar. Definitely true. A lot of trendy fitness around here. Trend number 2, eco fitness products. personalized nutrition and supplements, product and service opportunities, protein-packed meal subscription, on-the-go smoothie kits. We can definitely start a business around some of these. Very cool report. Risk factors. So excellent report to come out just the way we wanted it to from our prompt. That is pretty cool stuff. I'm going to jump back over to the guide. So this is some more advanced stuff here. Prompt optimization techniques. We can adjust the temperature, we can adjust the tokens, and we can adjust the precision phrasing. Right now, temperature adjustment and token limitation, that's just something you need to experiment with your preferences on how your responses are coming out. I have never touched in any of my implementations of AI the temperature or the tokens. Final thoughts, mastering this stuff. My biggest pro tips, use those lines. Is this the best way we can do this? Is there anything we can add? So that is it, guys. I hope you found this super helpful. These are the techniques that these companies are suggesting for how you interact with these agentic workflows and how you prompt your AI agents. So you can jump in the School community. I've got all that stuff up in there. Otherwise, I'll look forward to seeing you in the group, and I'll see you in the next video.